Isn't it also a crime what the Sacklers did with the opioid epidemic, creating an opioid epidemic that killed hundreds of thousands? Isn't that also a crime? And I can keep going down the list. Insider trading, isn't that also a crime? Some of the things Joe Biden's accused of, such as sexual assault, isn't that a crime? And Donald Trump's accused of, isn't that a crime? His tax evasion, Trump's tax evasion, isn't that a crime? All these things are crimes, but the rich, the powerful, A, they're never going to go to jail for them. B, many of them aren't even listed as crimes. Right? Pretty important news. California county, first in the U.S. to pass a law banning criminal background checks for housing. And when you live in the largest prison state that the world has ever known, which the U.S. is, with over 2 million people locked up on any given day, and you live in one of the largest police forces the world has ever known, then you should understand that people are arrested and imprisoned all the time. Either completely innocent, partially innocent, shouldn't have been locked up anyway. All of those things, that goes on all the time. So when they get their rights back, when people who were locked up and now aren't get their rights back, that's a good thing. That's something you should be celebrating. So if you're dumb enough to just go, listen, man, they did a bad thing and we got to stop the bad thing. So if they can't get a house, that's better for me. I can't help you. If you're that dumb, I can't. I got nothing. I can't help you for that. A California county has become the first in the nation to pass a law banning landlords from conducting criminal background checks on applicants, a significant move meant to curb housing discrimination against formerly incarcerated people. Also, let's talk about the fact that if they were formerly incarcerated, that means, quote unquote, they served their debt to society. So even if they committed the crime and you agree that the crime should have gotten them locked up, supposedly they're in there for a certain amount of time in order to serve their debt to society. Then they come out. They should be able to live a goddamn life. Like, how crazy is that? I mean, and also there's the fact that these people are locked up for committing a crime, right? Well, define crime in our society. And if some of you have already heard me talk about this, then forgive me. But this is what you never hear talk. This is why I hope you watch my show, is because so many other platforms, mainstream media, whatever, but even independent journalists, they will cover the fact that this is a good news story, pointing the wrong direction. This is a good news story. They'll cover that fact. They might even, like, this is from Guardian. They might even cover that people are done with prison. They've served their debt to society. They might even cover that there's a certain number of innocent people in prison. Who knows what that percentage is, but probably a large one. And they should be able to get apartments and rent apartments, etc. So they might even cover all that. What they won't cover is what I'm about to say, which with almost every topic, I try to give you the thing that you're not going to hear on almost, there might be one, but almost any other independent media outlet, independent media show. And here is that. Define crime. What is crime in our society? Well, it's all of those things that we know are against the law, rape, murder, stealing, driving over the speed limit, punching a cop in the face. All those things are against the law. Smoking a joint in a lot of places, depending on the state. Having coke, having a good time with some coke on you. We know those things are illegal. But isn't it also crime to be the largest bankers in the world raping the environment and stealing from the poorest Americans, which is done all day, every day? Isn't it also a crime what the Sacklers did with the opioid epidemic, creating an opioid epidemic that killed hundreds of thousands? Isn't that also a crime? And I can keep going down the list. Insider trading, isn't that also a crime? Some of the things Joe Biden's accused of, such as sexual assault, isn't that a crime? And Donald Trump's accused of, isn't that a crime? His tax evasion, Trump's tax evasion, isn't that a crime? All these things are crimes, but the rich, the powerful, A, they're never going to go to jail for them. B, many of them aren't even listed as crimes, right? Raping the environment as a Wall Street trader, that's not listed in the books. That's perfectly fine. Go to town. So when you say, oh, this allows people who have committed a crime to get out of prison and they're able to rent an apartment, what about all those incredibly rich, usually, but whatever, incredibly rich or powerful people who are committing crimes all the time, and not only do they not go to jail, but then I don't think they have a problem renting an apartment because they don't have a criminal record. So it's this system that locks people up, and then when they get out of being locked up, they still have an incredibly difficult life where they can't get all of these things that are supposed to be accessible to your average citizen, such as apartments and jobs and public assistance and all of that gets banned from them in many states. Voting, you can't vote if you. Not only have they served their debt to society, but they are suffering while the rich criminals, the powerful criminals, even if you're not the rich person yourself, there's a lot of kids who like drunk drive and kill someone, and then they get zero jail time because their parent is someone important, or they do some other horrible crime, maybe intentional, and they don't get any jail time because their parent is important. Their parent is a judge or an assembly person or a powerful lawyer or a what have you. So the idea that, oh, well, the criminals have been locked up, and when the criminals get out of prison, they should have a tough time finding an apartment because the landlord doesn't want to sell to a criminal, doesn't want to lease or rent to a criminal. They want to rent to the other kind of criminals, the white-collar crimes, right? Perfectly fine with renting to that. How about the housing crisis where the banks stole tens of thousands of homes from people? And if you steal a home from someone, it's really no different than burning it down for them personally, because they can't live in it anymore. So let's say the banks burned down tens of thousands of homes for people. They didn't serve any time. They don't have trouble renting an apartment. Anyway, I hope you get the point. The Fair Chance Law, passed with 4 yes votes and a 5th supervisor abstaining, also bans landlords from advertising that people with criminal history shouldn't apply, and it establishes that an individual with a criminal record can't be banned from moving in with a family member. So, and this goes on all the time. This is one county that has decided to approve this, which is why it's a good news story. But this shit goes on all the time where people can't, not only can they not find somewhere to rent because there's a criminal background check, but they're not even allowed to move in with their family member sometimes because the place says, oh, no previous criminals. And it's, and look, I know there's some of you out there right now going, if they committed a crime, then they shouldn't be, maybe the landlord doesn't want to rent to a criminal. If they created the crime, did the crime, they got to do the time, and time includes not being able to ever get an apartment again. It's like, what the fuck? No, it doesn't. That's not the time. But people like to go, well, they committed a crime. All right, first of all, you've never committed a crime, really. You never had a beer out on a sidewalk. You never drove over the speed limit. You never did a rolling stop through a stop sign. You never did a little bit of blow off a hooker's ass. You never declared your goldfish as a dependent on your tax returns. You never pretended to sign a pair of your underwear, Brad, and then sell it on eBay as Brad Pitt's underwear. You've never done any of that. All right, then you've never lived and you're a loser. So I have never met someone who's never broken any kind of law. So you're a criminal, apparently. If you're admitting you've done anything like that, you're a criminal. You just didn't get caught. You just didn't happen to get caught. So why sit there and have the holier than thou bullshit about, well, they shouldn't have done the crime if they ever wanted to live in an apartment again? What? Are you listening to yourself? Here's another factor. People say, oh, well, the landlord shouldn't have to, or sometimes it has to do with getting a job. Jobs sometimes are banned from, depending on the state, I believe, banned from asking if someone has a criminal past, has been convicted of something. And people go, well, that job doesn't want to hire a previous criminal. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe if someone did, if they were a serial kleptomaniac and they've been caught for stealing multiple times and the store doesn't want to hire someone who's been caught for stealing. It's like, okay, maybe that seems like it makes sense, but there's a million other things that would make you bad at working for a store that they could also shouldn't be banning you for, like, oh, this guy, well, his dad treated him poorly when he was a kid. His dad used to beat him when he was a kid, and his dad wore a toupee. So now every time this guy sees a guy with a toupee, he just treats him like shit. And so we can't have him working at our store. But if a interviewer were to start saying to people, hey, did your dad wear a toupee and beat you? That'd be an inappropriate question. You can't ask that in a job interview. So it's like there are plenty of reasons that someone might be shitty at a store or at a job or whatever. But this is the one that our society has largely considered acceptable. It's acceptable to ask if someone is an ex-con and then ban them from getting a job or getting assistance or getting an apartment or whatever. Shouldn't be. And so one California county has actually undone that. Thank goodness.